back to Orange Gum.
How is everyone? We are tracking right along for New Year's and, like making our progress through January.
That's right. You are here with Wendy T and Hope Skibitsky, and Wendy has been schooling me on reflecting. And so we talked a little bit about what reflecting is and why we do it, which I would like to dig deeper into. But more importantly, how do we make intentions for the new year unless we pay attention to what we did in the last, like what served us, what didn't serve us well, that kind of thing. So, what have you been pointing your eyesight at, honey?
Well, I think that, we were planning on, we kicked off the year with the intentions and everything. And so, now that people have had some time to kind of simmer on that, how would you go about setting them? And I think a part of that is spending that time thinking about what's working for me, what's not working for me. And, I think back on the year and like just even with our podcast, the people that reach out and they're like, oh gosh, like I needed more of this, or like, can we dig deeper in that? Which things like were meaningful moments for people. And kind of like one of the reasons we started was for people to feel less alone in
That's right.
their whatever it is that they're celebrating or whatever it is that they're like, this is not my favorite time.
Right,
And so,
that's right.
I think about like those are some things like I want to think about and say, like, I want more of this and like less of this. And so, how am I going to set that intention for my year? And so, I think it's just it's a good part of self-awareness. And so, we did all this like lesson linking when I was an instructor at the academy, and you had to do these journal entries to be able to spend time thinking, how does this apply in my life? And so it just seems like a good follow on into like, hey, I've got this big idea and like, let's prune it a bit and figure out like if that's meeting the mark for the things that we value.
Yeah, no, for real. I when you first mentioned the topic, I had to stop and think, like, golly, can I even pinpoint what I did last year so that I could say it did or didn't work? And I had a pretty rough beginning of last year. And as I was trying to sort my way through what do I do with myself, I said, well, I have a business, a side business called Hope as a Strategy. And it's because, hope is your strategy for, professional learning. And I thought, well, why did I name it that way? And it was because I wanted people to see me as the person that could help them learn and develop. And I think this podcast has really helped me stay true to that in sharing with other people, the bruises and the bumps and the scabs that I have acquired by doing things right, doing things wrong, learning along the way. And so it's a different platform than maybe I would have imagined using a skill, but it's great and it allows me to spend time with you while I'm doing it.
My favorite part, I totally remember, you're not going to remember this because it was words that you said. And, the pre-planner that you are means that it came out of your mouth in the moment. But you were talking about how there are two kind of schools of thought when it comes to leadership, right? And there's the leader who's like, I had it this hard, so you have to have it this hard to grow. And then there's the leader who's like, I've had it this hard, so let me clear the path so somebody that can get to this point where I am and not be as exhausted as I feel so that they can go further, And I think that when we're sharing all of our life moments, that, we're clearing that path for somebody.
That's right. Well, because what is the old saying? It's that a smart man learns from his mistakes, but a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. And so I think that it's really good to take some of the things that, have served you well or maybe didn't and share that with somebody else. I mean, they can put it in their pipe and smoke it, but at least it's there. They have access to it. And so I tell people all the time, I know I'm an over disclosure. I take nothing away from that. But I think that there's value in sharing some stuff with people because I feel like there's so many times in my life I've run into things. I'm like, how did anybody even know that?
No lie. I mean, when we dropped the last episode, there were so many people who were like, I need this. This is so true. More people should be talking about this.
Hmm.
I mean, everybody is like, like recognizes that we should be. making this more normal. And you and I are just the ones who are like
Willing.
absolutely confident enough in ourselves that we're willing to share.
Seriously, but like, I mean, you said it even last episode, but I do say it all the time. Like, how do you know what you don't know? And I used to get so mad that I would run into people who, like, how did you know that? And then once you knew that, why weren't you sharing that with other people so that other people could know that too?
So I used to talk about that for my students, because they'd complain like, this course is coming too late in my career. And so like I needed this information yesterday. And I'm like, well, the good news is that when you come back to your wing, you can prepare the people with all this great knowledge that you have so that the students that come to me next class aren't going to be telling me how nobody's ever shared this with them.
And it's fun
Right?
because at one point in my career, it was like earlier in like a big leadership position. I was given an opportunity to cover for my boss on a couple of occasions, go to a meeting. And I would go to that meeting and I would take notes and then I would put it in text and send it out to everybody. And they were like, oh my gosh, this is great. Where did this information come from? And I'm like, that meeting. And it happens every week. And so they were like, is this going to keep coming? And my boss would never send it out. It's like, went to that meeting and it smacked them in the face and it died on the vine. Like it never went anywhere. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to keep doing that. If I get information that I think other people might want, use, or need, or if I found it useful, might somebody else. And so now I'm just like, tell me what you want. I will share it with you.
That's how I totally remember meeting Jeff Cooey. I mean, I knew of him way before I ever met him. My super awesome wingman, Lenny, I've talked about him frequently. The person, like the beret.
Ah,
So Lenny was the senior NCO. So he kind of like opened my eyes to like strategic thinking as a whole. And we still keep in touch, but he forwarded me a lot of information. And so one of those things was this like kind of like update that would come out from this Jeff Cooey guy who later ended up in his career as the Expeditionary Command senior leader. And so he's actually retired out near you. Anyhow, he was always that person that was just like share, share, share. And I think as I witnessed people promoting to that level, I was like, oh, he's like an anomaly.
yeah,
And so I think I sent you even his notes of like, let me think about what it means to be like in here and what I think the job looks like, because nobody's ever really asked about that. And so, and I was just shocked that, I often thought the first sergeant community is so giving as far as like, who has a template for this and how does this work or what, it's an experience-based job. And so everybody was sharing. And so I just thought that's how it is. And then I see people move into that high level and nobody's sharing anything.
right.
And so like I just, applaud the people who are always made that very approachable to ask all the things and then share what I know to make it easier for the person
Right.
coming up so that they don't have to like get all those bumps and
That's
bruises.
me. I do that all the time. I'm like, let me just give anybody. I've had people reach out and say, "Will you share your annual performance report? Will you
Yeah, yeah,
share
yeah.
your award or decoration packages?" And I'm like, "Yep, it's all yours. Like, have
Oh
it."
my gosh, I totally remember sitting with you. I came out to visit when you were going through the Chiefs course. And
Mm.
And I was like, oh, what's happening with this and this and this? And you were like, I don't like the words that you're saying. I am not familiar with. And so then you're like calling your leaders like, hey, and they're like, oh, we totally meant to do that with you.
That's
Like, okay.
that's right. So, I mean, as we talk about like reflecting, I think reflecting to see what served us well last year so that we can build intentions for this year is great. But let me just recognize reflection in and of itself. Like the few number of people who have ever voiced it to me, and maybe they do and they do a better job than I've ever known, but the few people that I've known that actually take the time to stop and think about how something went, whether it be an event or a situation or a fight they had with someone or a success, where you reflect on what was the good things. And so I had the privilege one time to attend a course by a Dr. Karen Rivich, and she's the author of The Resilience Factor. And she talked about how she used to do instruction at this college, and she would mark up papers and tear them up if they were terribly written. But if they were written well, they'd get a smiley face. And she started to realize that if they did good, she didn't tell them what they were doing good. If they did good, she didn't tell them how to keep doing more of the good. She would
Oh, that's
just
such a good
smiley
point.
face them. But if they were doing bad, she gave them all kinds of information on how they could do better, where they had missed the mark. And I have kept that with me forever because I love to tell people what they're doing right. And I reflect on the right in things because it helps me realize that I don't suck at everything.
Well, yeah, and it's just like good reinforcing behaviors. So
Hmm.
I mean, I think that's so true. Like as I'm thinking about how do I grade? Room for improvement.
That's right.
But
And
that's
so
what, we kind of
I
come
think
back to that, celebrating people too, because, sometimes when you feel like it's just me, and then, isn't it great to have a community that wants to celebrate your wins too?
I love doing that. When I find out something about you and somebody else calls you and says, Wendy, congrats. And you're like, how'd you even know? I'm like, it was that
That
obvious.
happened this year, and I was like,
I love celebrating your wins. I love celebrating other people's wins. I mean, if you're in a crowd of people that isn't celebrating when you win at something, they shouldn't be in your crowd.
100% true. And so I think like, that's when I think back on the year, and I have said yes to a lot of things that stretched me pretty thin. And, as I'm thinking about, is that like a thing, like, am I prioritizing the right things? And, so that's some of the things that I've spent when I try and think through intention, I want the universe of people celebrating things. And I mean, I have a lot of people who do, but there's definitely some areas that I've poured into. Like I gave up piano lessons because I was like running ragged, and I'm like, that was something for me, like just for me, and to like open up a different part of learning for my brain, And so I love that Justin's doing the guitar for vets thing, and so
Oh,
like he's
he loves it.
yeah, if you don't know what that is, they will take somebody who knows nothing about playing the guitar and then lead you through that. And if any of you know Mark Riley, he is all about like sound and healing, and he does all of the percussion kind of stuff for a lot of different communities. I met him up in DC, and just how healing that can be, and so kind of like the intention that that program does that Justin's involved in, and it just reminded me, like, man, I gave that up because I was running ragged, and I'm like, what did I put in its place? Was it something that was going to be growing me and helping me learn in a different way and doing it just for me?
Yeah, so same idea. I mean, I tell myself all the time, like, pay attention to you, pour into you, give to you. But man, at the first sign of something needing doing, I will lose sleep and I will shorten a yoga session. Like, oh, I wanted it to be 45 minutes today. It's going to be 5 minutes today. And why? Why do I always take from me? And so as I started thinking about like, what is my intention this next year? And I want this year to be like intentional health, like intentionally healthy. I eat well a lot, but when I'm on the road, not everybody accommodates my eating. I eat more potatoes in the
French fries.
fry than
You're French
anybody
fries all
I
day.
know. Yeah, which I think goes exactly counter to healthy eating.
It's still a vegetable.
I don't know. I never met a potato I didn't like.
I mean, you're not wrong. The places you go are like they'll hand you like a head of iceberg lettuce and be like, here you
Yeah, like just because I don't eat animal doesn't mean I only want to eat a cold head of lettuce.
go.
Calm down, Sparky. Like, where's your barley and root vegetables? And talk to me, please, about something that is more savory and hot. I am sick and tired of a cold salad. And by the way, most places you get a cold salad after you've said, please save the egg and save the ham and save the cheese and save the ranch dressing. I've got a potato, a cucumber, and a whole head of lettuce.
Where were we the other day? I'm not somebody who really uses dressing. Like I'll have like lemon juice or like oil and vinegar kind of something, right? I grew up that way. And so like for me, that's normal. And I didn't remember that about myself until my family came for Thanksgiving last year. And they were
Where's the
like, you don't have condiments for anything in your refrigerator. And I was like, for what? Like there was no ketchup, there was no like barbecue kind of sauces or any of those kinds of things, and there
the
was no
only
dressing.
condiment I traditionally bring to the table is tapatio. I'm like, make it hot, mix this thing up.
So I went with my mom to an activity with her club, and we were eating lunch. And so I ordered my meal, but I wanted a salad with it. And then they were like, we have Thousand Island, French, and ranch. And I was like, I mean, like, what about like Italian or oil and vinegar? Or, and they're like, no, no. And I'm like, okay, no salad then. 'Cause I guess I just won't have the salad today. Because I was like, I can't do it. Like, and so, I mean, I don't have nearly the same kind of like, you know, things that I'm particular about with my food as you do. And so, like, you're very, very disciplined in your nutrition choices. And I can't imagine, like, when you go someplace, there, and especially because of how advanced we've gotten as a society with how much more popular it is, I'm just always shocked at how unaccommodating places are when it comes to like, especially because you're a pre-planner. It's not like they didn't know.
People get really ugly too. Like I was with a group of folks and we were traveling and they all wanted to go to like a seafood place. And I went and I was just like, so like, do you just have French fries? And they're like, no, like we have, and they were running through the thing. And I was like, trying to help myself by figuring out was there anything I could eat? And they like, you're at a seafood restaurant. I'm like, I do know that, but I don't eat animal products. So, and they were like, then why'd you come? And I'm like, well, because I wanted to be with my friends and this is where they wanted to come eat. And so I wasn't
Mhm.
gonna drag all of them to go to the place that would accommodate me. So I'm here and thought I could for sure find something I could eat. But
Something, anything, like,
what are we doing?
right. And like, why does somebody have to be mean-spirited about it?
Yeah.
Like,
So
yeah, I can't
anyhow,
remember.
this year I am gonna like and be very intentional about my health, my well-being. And it's not gonna be a goal of I'm gonna put on 4 bazillion pounds of muscly bulk or I'm going to any of those things, things that I just know for a fact would, and this is my shortfall, I'm sure, it would intimidate me into doing it because I'm just like, I'm not going to need it or I'm not going to do it as well as
We
I have
kind of
hoped.
talked through that last time about, like, let's like kind of be done with this like fail or no fail
Yeah,
kind of mindset, but like what things am I going to bring in that are going to serve me? And I like that for you. Um, I think the same thing about like this pattern of getting so focused on work that I really neglect getting rest.
yeah,
And so, I have to set the better boundaries.
yeah. So, I mean, I have spent a little bit of time just thinking about it as you started talking about like reflecting and trying to pay attention to what did serve me well and what didn't serve me well last year so that I could be more intentional about it this year. And Justin and I, when we got married, both of us still had really, little kids. And so we spent a lot of our growing up together, married life, parenting. Like the sole focus of our life was how do we do better by the kids? How do we make sure that they're properly educated? Who's getting who to what thing, that kind of stuff. And so it was a lot of focus on the kids. And then we had a little bit of a boomerang situation with our kids. They would go away and then they would come back and they would go away and they would come back. And so it was always, again, accommodating adult children now. And how do we fit them into our life? But what often I found happened was we would neglect the couple, us. What were we doing that was very deliberate for the couple, us? And so the things that I really liked about last year was we were able to get back into bike riding. We would take our dog biking. We would do a couple dates where we at least once a month would do something just very fun, super unique, and wildly different for the two of us. He would entertain me on like calligraphy and mixed drinks. And we went to some Edgar Allan Poe live poetry reading that had a different mixed drink for each poem. And like a lot of things that I'm like, this sounds really kooky, let's do it. And he's like, okay. And so anyway, that served us really well. It gave us couple night, it brought us closer together. And so I've already got us scheduled for stuff and I'm excited about doing more of that.
I love that.
Mhm.
I was thinking about that when I spent time with you, like how different you guys are with your activities, how similar you are with values, but different with activities.
Yeah.
And so, and just spending time with your full family, thinking about that, as I spent time with everybody that was a couple, I was reflecting on that too. So,
Yeah, we are very, very different. And I think that's one of the things that keeps us interested in one another is because we are very, very different. But I like that when he comes home from his guitar lesson, he wants to tell me all about how that happened and how they're melding and yeah.
Okay, so break really quickly. I don't think that I recall that Justin was so extroverted in that sense. Like he was very chatty. And so I was like, I don't really remember this about him. I mean, I spend a lot of time with both of you guys, but he was really just like telling me all about all his things and everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most I think I've ever heard him speak.
Yeah, I personally have always underestimated how much time Justin can spend with Justin. I'm like, damn, dude, like you have been by yourself for a long time. But where he really enjoys like somebody else in his circle is when he can talk about the things that bring him joy that he's gotten to do and that he's getting better with because he does a great job of setting goals and setting intentions. Justin doesn't care like if the Pope was sitting in his living room. If it's 3 o'clock, he's in the gym. It doesn't matter. Like nobody and nothing.
The
Where me, I'm
Pope,
like,
really? The Pope.
well, he did grow up an altar boy. And so as I am like, oh, there's people here. I'm just gonna not like do that thing. Justin's like,
No,
mm-mm.
no, no. Justin and Tammy are like the same person with the boundaries.
Justin's like, you're not getting in the way of me doing the thing that I do.
Yeah. I love that. I need him to rub off on me.
Me too. I'm always like, oh, I just feel so bad still doing that. Okay, they popped in, unexpectedly or whatever, but
Yeah.
like they'll be here when I get back.
Yeah. I know we're the over accommodators.
Mhm.
I don't want other people to feel like they're
Left out
inconvenienced
or
or
burdensome
yeah.
or inconvenient.
Yeah. And so, oh, like classic example when we were there, you had zero time to be like, let's do a little excursion to go out and visit with people, but we sure fit it in.
Well, first off and foremost, dear beloved, I love him with my whole heart. But when he reached out to say he was here, like the ringing in my ears, like it was just this loud, incredible. Because I love when people tell me they're in town. Like, wait, you actually thought to let me know you're here. I am gonna do everything I can to make sure I come see you or whatever because it just warms my soul. Like you thought of me, all the people here. I mean,
You know what? Super impressive, by the way. Like he put in the work. Like, let me meet you halfway.
yeah,
And like if
came
we
all
can,
the way
we will
out
come
here for
by.
a party.
Right. And like here's where I am,
Yeah. I'm
so
telling
that
you,
was
I might be taking too much progesterone, but this is where it gets like the water in my eyes because I just love it. I love when people are like,
mhm.
well, we thought enough about you. And that makes me
Right,
so
right.
desperate.
But
But
back to my point of like there was zero time in that day to be doing that. And somehow we were like, we're gonna do
I'm like,
it.
I'm
And
gonna do it.
I'm totally the enabler. Like it's time to
Yeah, I'm like, I don't care how far we have to drive. I don't care what's going on. Like you
go.
said you were here and we're gonna do it. And I'm just so, so glad we did.
Yeah, yeah, it was. It was totally wonderful. But when it comes to the let me figure out how to like carve out the pieces, I would just on that note, like the fact that he was willing to do all of the meet the halfway, I think was super impressive too. It was a real testament to his character and in your friendship.
Oh, and getting to spend time with Young and, Valine, like, I don't
Yeah,
know. It means a lot to me when I have like a friend. It means more to me when that friend welcomes me into their family because like
for sure.
The Air Force always was my family.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so it was wonderful to spend some time with them. What a like bonus for me. I was like, let me crash your party.
And I love it. I'm glad. You are my like Corsican twin.
Plus one. That's right. So, when we spent time talking about the intentions, and then now we're spending all this time like looking inward. And so, how do I shape out like that, good intention for myself? I think that, that's where you can kind of like look at some of the things that will help you reach that, in that mindset. And
That's right.
so, think back about spend the time, do the work. And, look, y'all, this is free therapy.
That's right. And so to draw a parallel where I'm not 100% sure it exists, but it makes sense in my mind. if we don't reflect on what served us well last year so that we can build our intentions this year, or if we don't reflect on what didn't serve us well, there's this great book called The Power of Moments, and it talks about how, like, your brain will automatically only remember, like, the big parts of, you might be with somebody for 20 years and then break up, but you're only going to remember the big parts, like maybe the big fight or the big celebration. You don't remember all the mundane day to day. And the mundane day to day may have been the cause of the broken relationship because it was like tick, 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 where it
Mhm.
all just kind of finally added up and bubbled up.
Yeah.
When you're away from that somebody long enough, like just the power of moments, that it might just be the good moments or the one or two bad moments that you think of, and you're like, but I really could still love them. And you get back in that thing, and then you find again the why you left that thing, right? It didn't serve you well. And I could be talking a romantic relationship, I could be talking a platonic relationship, I could be talking about a professional relationship, one that you feel like there was a reason I cared about that person. If that person isn't being intentional about making changes as well, you're just inviting yourself back into that situation that didn't serve you well already. So reflection is huge, about making sure that your going forward path isn't tied to a ball and chain or,
Oh my gosh. I think I love that you used those words too, because I think, if you're going to be looking at where I'm going to go, you have to start thinking about where you were.
Mm.
And, like that look back is going to help you really kind of like carve that path forward for whatever that intention is that looks like for you, whether it is in, you know, pick an area of your life, like, hey, we're here to champion you on for whatever that might be. And so I think like that's just such a good thing to focus on is like, hey, let's not repeat this cycle again so that next year I'm thinking about the things I didn't get done, but also celebrate the wins on the way, like to your point about, um, what things am I reinforcing? What good behaviors am I reinforcing by celebrating it? And so I think that's, valuable too.
So I had an executive leader in the company that I had worked in before, and she had recommended this book called 4,000 Weeks. And um, it doesn't just talk about how you only have 4,000 weeks relatively to live, but it talks about like how do you prioritize that time. And it isn't the same as like Stephen Covey says, put all the big rocks in, and then the medium rocks, and then the small rocks, and then the sand, and then the water. No, no, no. It's more along the lines of if you only have 4,000 weeks, what are you prioritizing? Because you can't have everything can't be a priority. And are you prioritizing the right things? I'm paraphrasing in a miserable way, but it's a really great book. And it talks a lot about making sure that you're making time for the things that count because there's only so much time.
Yeah, the life ends for all of us at
Mm.
some point. And so, you know,
Yeah.
we all end the same, like it's the same way. So
Yeah,
it
everybody's
does
got an
end for
expiration
everybody.
date. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's funny because every time I talk about that, not that mortality is fun, but I think of Justin because like I'll go shopping, like, oh, isn't this fun? He's like, Hope, how much more do we need? I'm like, wait, nothing. What do you mean? Because I'm not a big like stuff person, but if I want something, I want it. Because he's always like, we never seen a hearse pulling a U-Haul. I'm
that's
like, oh my,
right. That's Justin's always, you can always count on him to bring reality to the situation.
that's right. That's right. He makes a good teammate.
He does.
So I mean, this stop and look back, the don't just pontificate, but ponder over, like, was it good? One, was it good for me? Two, and then was it good for a thing I'm trying to do? Because I don't love all the things I do that maybe my partner loves, but I love my partner enough to get joy out of doing the things that bring them joy. So I'm not trying to say be completely selfish and only focus on you because sometimes the things that you focus on for someone else serves you as good because it feels as good to give.
Yeah, there's some kind of like harmony in it.
Yeah.
So I think like I was trying to find better words, but the spending the time thinking about like that past, that reflection time. The reflection time is like that bridge between who you were and then who you're becoming. And by setting that good intention, if we do the work of spending the time thinking about like who I was and where I'm going, then like let's honor that journey and feel good about having a very meaningful, year ahead. So
It's good. It's good. And I look forward to the year ahead with you, but I think we've come to the end of this road, my dear. So go
Well,
ahead.
I'm still looking forward to hearing back from everybody else's, as they're framing out their intentions. And so I'm super excited all the great feedback we had on the last episode about let's talk about the real things.
Yay. And I want to hear it. And we really are planning to bring some experts on that can talk to us about some of the things that would be really good for us to know, to learn, to do, that kind of thing. So
Yeah, I like it. So I
always.
hope you guys, and it's gonna be the Lunar New Year. And
Oh,
so
yeah,
yeah, and so we'll have be celebrating. I think last year at this time we were just kind of sitting down and thinking through how we were going to shape up our podcast, and we dropped the information on the new year.
that's right.
So
100%. We
yeah,
dropped it on the Lunar New Year and then we started with Women's History Month. So
we did. So I spent a lot of time thinking about the last year. So
I love it.
mhm.
Of course, I love you.
I love you too.
So, everybody, as always, if there's something you want to hear us talk about, if you want to talk to us about this thing that we've talked about, if you want to talk about anything else, you can always reach us, orangegumpodcast@gmail.com. You can find all of our episodes at orangegumpodcast.com. You can see the video at YouTube, subscribe, like, that kind of thing. But as always, we're glad to spend time with you, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Take care, y'all.